Tape 3W suivi d'école au Sénégal. D'accord. À école au Sénégal, c'est facile, tu n'as qu'à te connecter. Tape école au Sénégal, les leçons sont beaucoup plus détaillées.
Affirmative, interrogative, positive, or negative. What it is, they're sentences. In English, we have different kinds of sentences, and we're going to be looking at three major. The first one is affirmative sentences, and we have interrogative sentences, and of course the negative sentence. And affirmative means yes, means something positive, positive sentences. And then of course interrogative means it's questionable, sentences that are questions. And of course we know that sentences with questions end with a question mark, ends with a question mark. And all the other sentences are with a full stop. And so negative means it's something that has a no to it. And so on the board I've written affirmative, which is positive, and then we have interrogative, which is a question sentence, and then of course the negative, which is a no sentence. Affirmative, the sentences that are positive, you know, that oftentimes you use it's a yes as a response, you know, that's affirmative. For example, and oftentimes it is with do or it's with did. For example, I did eat the banana. I did eat the banana. That's affirmative. That means I actually did it. That's affirmative. I actually did it. They played football. You know, they played golf yesterday. That's an affirmative because they actually did do it. You know, they actually did do it. So it's an affirmative sentence. But what about an interrogative? It means it's a question. And oftentimes, again, you're going to have the do or the did. Because as far as a question sentence, and it ends with a question mark, interrogative. It's a question mark. For example, did you watch the match last night? Did you watch the match last night? It's an interrogative question, you know. Or you can say, if you want to use do, do you love comedies? Do you love comedies? That's an interrogative question. Or a simple one could be, are you coming? Are you coming over? That would be an interrogative question. So any sentence that got to end with a question mark as an interrogative sentence. And then of course you have the negative form. The negative form always has a no or not. A no or not. For example, I didn't take your money. I didn't take your money. Or if it's formally, like we mentioned in our last class, I did not. Would be I did not. You know, they never arrived. Last Sunday, they never, because it's a negative, never, you know. We do not like trains. And so these are some of the examples. If I have to, maybe I should divide it so maybe a bit more visible. Sorry everyone for So you have the negative, which is of course the no or the not or the never, which means the negative, you see? Didn't, did not. So, and then you have the interrogative. So, are you coming over? For example, if you had a sentence like, are you coming over? That is interrogative. What would be affirmative of the sentence? We are coming over. That's affirmative, positive. We are coming over. And then what would be the negative? We are not coming over. Excuse me. Let's give an example of a sentence so we can use all of it, you know. Let's give try an example. Or for example, the plane crashed last year. The plane crashed last year. How do we transform this into an interrogative form? How do we translate that? It's going to be, did the plane crash last year? I'm sorry, this is my C. Did the plane crash last year? That's interrogative. And then what would be the negative form? The plane did not crash last year. The plane did not crash last year. What if we did an interrogative form? Let's give an example. Interrogative form is Isaiah having a party? Is Isaiah having a party? Is Isaiah having a party? It's an interrogative form. Why? Because it ends in a question mark, okay? Questions are always ending with question marks, and sentences always start in capital, okay? And so what would be the affirmative? What would be the positive version of this? Would be what? Is Isaiah having a party? What would it be? It would be Isaiah is having a party, of course, and then a full stop. And then what would be the negative of is Isaiah having a party? What would be the negative? Isaiah, of course, Isaiah is not having a party. That's a negative because it has the not there. Not. Let's look for a negative form, a negative example. A negative example, or, you know, he does not, does. You see the S in the he, third person singular? Does. He does not, what would that be? He does not take, or he does not consume, maybe he does not consume sugar. He does not, the not is there, he does not consume. Of course, consume means he doesn't take, he doesn't eat, he doesn't have sugar. Maybe he's diabetic or, you know, watching weight or something. He does not consume sugar, and he could be, it could be Tom, okay? He, third person singular, it's a subject pronoun, and he does not consume sugar. So how would you put that in affirmative, a positive form? It would be, he does consume Sorry, my C is so. He does consume sugar. How do you put it in a negative? What would you say? He or Tom. What? What would that be? The negative. In interrogative, what would that be? Does, because it's a third person, singular, does Tom, in brackets, he, does Tom, or does he consume sugar? Of course, with my question mark. Be careful with punctuations. It changes the sentence a lot. You know, be careful. It changes the sentence a lot. So you should be very careful as far as you're ending your questions, especially when it comes to interrogative, because if you don't put the question mark, it kind of throws off the sentence, okay? So these are some of the examples I just wanted us to know that affirmative means yes, and sometimes it's do, I do eat, you know, I do eat, or I did it, and oftentimes when you're just short answers to interrogative sentences is either yes or no. Did you go to church last Sunday? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. And so the answers to interrogative questions, short answers is either maybe a yes or no kind of answer, straight to the point kind of answer. And then of course you have what they call the negative form. Like I said, the negative form is the no, the not, the never. And if it's an abbreviation or formal or informal, it's the don't, the aren't, the weren't, but the wouldn't, the shouldn't, they couldn't, they wouldn't. But if it's in the formal form that we saw, will not, should not, could not, did not, do not, never, cannot. Those are the formal forms of the negative. So you should be, but what you should take particular note is that the punctuations as well, that in the affirmative and the negative form, there's a full stop at the end, whereas the interrogative form has a question mark because interrogative means it's a question, you know. Whatever form that it comes, you should be able to ascertain as far as the subject pronouns are concerned, if it's a first person, a second person, a third person, singular, or the plural, you should know what to use. Pay particularly attention to the third person singular if it's in the present, or self, because you have to add an S to it. So be able to, we looked at the tenses, so be able to identify like the verbs, if the verb needs to be transformed or conjugated, which terminology, you know, would you apply to it? If it's in the past tense, you know, it's the ED, the IED, or irregular, you transform to the irregular form. Or if it's the present, what are you adding to it? The verb change stays present. So you should know when you are dealing with affirmative, interrogative, or the negative forms, okay? If you have any questions, please let me know, and we'll probably have more examples as we go along. Thank you, and see you next time.
Tape www.vidéo.Senegal.com. À Ecoles.